This is Consumer Friend.
Hello and welcome back to this festive Consumer Friend podcast with me, Adam Carter, and Louise Baxter. Hi Lou, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Ad. I'm excited for Christmas.
Are you ready for Christmas?
I did all my wrapping yesterday, so yeah, I'm ready.
What? So there's nothing else to do? So we're recording this on the 9th of December and you are now sorted for Christmas?
I've got like 2 more things coming, but yeah, I'm done.
Well done. That's very impressive. I have had everything done for me by my amazing wife who loves to go shopping in October for Christmas, and she just sends me an invoice. It is fantastic. The only thing I haven't done is bought her anything yet, which I will obviously do on the 23rd, 24th.
Always. You always do it on like Christmas Eve, and then you always come to my house and then wrap it all up.
Wrap everything up. Yep. You know it.
And then leave it here. Yep.
Right, Louise, what is your favourite thing about Christmas?
Cheese.
Cheese? Oh, cheese is life.
And the lights. Cheese is life. And the lights. And I like to wear lots of fancy dress.
You really do. You really, really do. For those of you who don't know Louise is 4'8". What are you?
9.
4'9". So she always dresses up as an elf. She uses her height as a superpower and always dresses up as an elf.
I went to Panto on Saturday as an elf. Full elf costume. It jingled as well. Whenever I walked, the bells jingled. It's brilliant.
Were you in the Panto? That was my joke last year.
It was Snow White as well, and no, I wasn't.
I listened to last year's Christmas podcast, and last year I asked you what your favourite Christmas film was. Now, I wonder if you are going to be able to get the same one this year.
Elf, I probably said.
You did not. Although Elf is probably the right answer, but
Love
also
Actually?
No. You said last year Die Hard.
Oh, Die Hard, yeah. But then we had a debate about whether Die Hard was a Christmas film or not.
It is a Christmas film.
Or Home Alone. I quite like that. I've watched that already.
Me and Harry have watched Home Alone. Watched that in bed on Saturday morning. It was brilliant. We loved it.
Yeah, there's a new one. There's a new one that's come on. That's on the telly at the moment. It's a cartoon, and I asked my kids if they'd watch it with me, and they were like, "No," so I watched it on my own.
Yeah, fair enough. They'll come round. They'll figure it out in the end.
I love Christmas films. I like the Channel 5 Christmas films that went straight to VHS.
Oh, the Hallmark films.
Yeah, they went straight to VHS. They never touched the cinema. And they've got Dean Cain that was in Superman. He's in a lot of them.
They do such good business, though. They really, really do. They're just cheesy and awful, but they're so much fun. They follow. They're all very formulaic. They follow the same plot.
And they're all called like Candy Cane Lane or something like that.
Someone's come home from the big city, and they've got to try and refine Christmas, and their old high school love is there, and they talk to each other, and they have a very awkward first meeting, and by the end of it, they've saved Christmas somehow.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Right, best Christmas song. What's your favourite Christmas song?
Pogues.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agreed. Harry loves Last Christmas by Wham. But
so does Bertie. I also like Mariah. I do. I'm in for Mariah.
Okay, so enough of the Christmas chat. We have got a very special guest today. So we're keeping with tradition on having a guest on every episode in season 4 or series 4, depending on what country you live in. Apparently in America it's called season, here it's called series. I'll edit that bit out, that was boring. We are going... I got bored there. I got bored saying it.
I'm bored himself.
I nearly fell asleep.
Brilliant.
Might have to leave it in now. We are going on a deep dive on what it's like to be a trading standards officer with a super TSO. That means trading standards officer. Jemma Cox, she is the lead officer for civil law for the Chartered Trading Standards Institute. Jemma, you're going to have to explain that. She's also a lecturer at Cardiff University and a trading standards officer at the Vale of Glamorgan. And she's been there for the last 15 years protecting consumers. Hi, Jemma. How are you?
Hi, Adam. Hi, Lou. Thanks so much for inviting me on. I was listening to your Christmas chat and thinking, oh, Christmas songs, Christmas films, definitely feeling very festive today.
So come on, Christmas film.
Oh, that's a really difficult one. I think the Polar Express, because that's what my 2 little ones are into at the moment. They love it. So yes, I can still hear that sleigh bell when it rings, even as a grown-up. So magic is still alive.
I often play a game with my friends. I say a game again. I don't get invited out very much anymore. If you were on a desert island disc and you had one actor's back catalogue of films or TV shows, what would that actor be? And mine is always Tom Hanks.
Yeah, a lot of good films, definitely.
Yeah, he's done so much.
Yeah, the one that we just watched was a Man Called Otto. Is it A Man Called Otto? Is that what it's called?
I cried for 2 hours from the beginning to the end. It was too much.
Nothing happens really.
Yeah.
But I was gripped. Like, it was also one of those films where I didn't pick up my phone for the whole time either. Like, because it's such a great film.
Yeah, it's amazing. Right, Gemma, best Christmas song?
Oh, I think Mariah Carey, because everybody, tries to sing, even if they can't sing to that one. So yeah, I think that encapsulates the Christmas spirit, definitely.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so Gemma, you have 3 jobs here, so you're a very, very busy person. Shall we just knock them off one by one? So you are a lead officer for civil law for the Chartered Trading Standards Institute. Now, please, can you explain that in less than 10 words? You can have a few more. I'm only joking.
I have to really think about that then. I'm a bit like you and Lou. Less than 10 words is a big challenge for me, Adam. So basically, what that actually means is that I represent, or have the pleasure of representing, my trading standards colleagues where there's developments in civil law. And that covers lots of things. And Lou and I work together in our lead officer roles on things like advice and consumer rights. We've also got sort of civil enforcement things. So a whole host of things really that come into the civil landscape. So my job is to try and keep up to date with lots and lots of changes that are happening all the time in our area, and try and keep people up to date, and also where we think that there are gaps or weaknesses in protections, to try and stand up and fight for those as well. So that's some of the things that I would do in my lead officer role.
So you're pretty much the person who is probably the most up-to-date person in civil law that there is, or at least one of them. And do you find that quite painful, quite hard to do?
Well, I think like everybody, there's always going to be something new that I learn. So I'd say every day is a school day for me. So there's always going to be somebody that knows more, I would say, Adam, for sure. But I do try as much as possible to keep up to date with things so I can help my trading standards colleagues and, of course, businesses and consumers as well.
Gemma's an expert, but she makes it easy to understand. Like, so when we were talking about setting up the podcast, there were some bits on our website that I then edited based on feedback, because the legislation is so complicated and so nuanced in certain places that actually, if I've got any questions, I'm like, Jem, what about this? What about this? Because it's all subject to interpretation as well.
I'm going to ask possibly a thick question, but what's the difference between civil law and is it criminal law? I guess it's criminal law and civil law. What's the difference?
Yeah, so criminal law is the law that trading standards enforce where there may be criminal offences, things like intellectual property or fraud. So a lot of the things that Lou would talk about in relation to scams and fraud, and I know you've had some fantastic guests on this series talking about those sorts of issues, those would all be criminal investigations and offences. On the civil side, where we're not looking to punish or deter behaviour that's undesirable, what we're actually looking at is disputes between individuals. So if you and I had a dispute, Adam, we had a contract and you breached it, that's not fair on me because you haven't held up your end of the deal. So essentially it's about those rights and responsibilities between individuals. But we do have some enforcement side as well, where there's businesses that are breaching those quite constantly. Then regulators like trading standards can step in as well. So a really important aspect for lots of us on an individual level, I think.
That's fascinating. Right. Okay. So you do this for the CTSI, the Chartered Trading Standards Institute. You are also a lecturer at Cardiff University. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I've been there. I think this is my 16th year at Cardiff University.
Wow.
So I think, except for 1 year, I've always either been a student or a teacher since I was 18. So I'm from North Wales, from Wrexham originally, and I moved down to Cardiff to do my law degree. And then, just loved helping people. I love that mixture of law and education. So I've taught on the law degree, but because, as you've said, I'm a full-time trading standards officer, I also teach in lifelong learning. So I teach adults who didn't get along with school, maybe want a career change. Maybe they want to go on and do a law degree or a business degree. And they come and they'll learn a whole host of things. It could be, I did contract law this week, I do business lectures, a whole host of things to help them to have a career change. But the great thing for me is I still learn constantly. So I'm, as I said before, lifelong learning for me is really important. So trading standards as a career is fantastic because there's always something new to learn and keep my brain ticking.
Yeah, I've been in trading standards now for 6-7 years, and I don't know 10% of it. It's crazy. There is so much stuff trading standards officers do. And you've been obviously a trading standards officer for 15 years. Have you always been at the Vale of Glamorgan? That's kind of, is that Cardiff, Bridgend, Vale of Glamorgan, that kind of end, South Wales?
Yeah, so we've been a shared service for about 9.5 years. And before that, I was in Bridgend Council before we merged as a 3. So yes, I've always kind of worked in that area in South Wales, yeah.
Also, Jemma runs a podcast.
I do. Thanks, Lou. Thanks. So shameless plug. I do.
Yeah.
So actually our current episode features Lou. So do take a listen. It's brilliant, as always. So it's called Ask the Regulator. So you can get it wherever usual places that you'd get your podcasts. And it's also, you can get it for free on the srs.wales website. We've got a business section there. And we basically talk about all things to do with trading standards, environmental health and licensing. So there's a whole host of things, lots of business advice and guidance as well that people can listen to if they want to.
We will certainly put a link to it in the show notes. Before I go into, we want to talk about the issues that trading standards teams see on a day-to-day basis. But before we go into that, I'm really keen to kind of find out what like an average day is for you. So what that is the question, I guess. What is the average day for a trading standards officer like?
Wow, that's a really, really big question.
There is no average day, right? There is no average day?
No. So because it's so diverse, as you said, there's so much, we enforce so many pieces of legislation, hundreds of pieces of legislation, that a trading standards officer in one authority might be doing something very different than a trading standards authority in another. But one of the things that I think is a common myth, if you like, is that we only or we predominantly just care about enforcement. So when something goes wrong with the business, that's when you see a trading standards officer. But actually, that's not the case at all. And a lot of the work that we do is about education, working with businesses. So one of the things that's really important for us is that we try and help people to get things right. So whether that's on the consumer rights side or whether that's working with the business that isn't doing the right thing or what's required by law because they just don't understand what they need to do. So a lot of my day in the current role that I'm in is actually supporting and working with businesses to get things right. And if I can get it right with the business, that's going to help thousands and thousands of consumers, because essentially if I get it right at source with that business, it helps the business to grow, to develop and obviously build our economy, but it also helps all of their customers and consumers as well. So as well as the enforcement side of trading standards, I think the education, the support for businesses and that kind of graduated approach, which is a big word, but it just means we don't just go out there and think someone's done something wrong, we're going to prosecute them. That's never been the ethos of trading standards. So I think that the kind of business support is an area that not many people think of when they think of trading standards, but it's probably what I spend most of my day doing.
And it, like you say, it's such an important aspect of what trading standards teams do, isn't it? Because businesses are out there, they don't want to get it wrong. The majority of people in this planet are beautiful, wonderful, hardworking people that don't want to do wrong by anyone, that are trying to get things right, and they don't necessarily know what the right thing is to do. So, which is where guys like you come in to really help them and guide them along their way.
Well, we talk about consumers not understanding stuff, but just because somebody runs a business, how we presume and assume that they will understand all the complicated legislation, but businesses are consumers as well. And if we go in, the average reading age of a UK consumer is 9 to 12, that's the same for businesses. There's massive vulnerability there from a business perspective, and we don't always provide, and I know, Gemma, you do a lot of work around this as well, it's around trying to provide that information to businesses in a bite-sized chunks, so people can process it, and in a way that is easy for them to comply. Because if you make it too complicated, again, people are going to go, nope, too hard not doing it.
Absolutely. Well, as a small business in particular, you are your social media, your marketing, your legal, your everything for that business. So, and one of the resources, Business Companion, which is just businesscompanion.info, is a guidance that's written exactly like that, Lou, as you know, that's made available for free by the Chartered Trading Standards Institute. So what you can do is you can select the area of the UK that your business is operating in, and then what you can do is do a search. So, there's got a search bar at the top if you're interested in contracts, or if you're interested in selling goods online, you can do a search and it'll pull up all of the relevant business guidance. And the great thing is that because it's a small, easy to digest document, you can always come back to it. So you don't have to look at things as a whole, particularly when time is such an important factor for businesses.
Yeah, we will put links to Business Companion on the show notes. So we're here to talk today about like the 5 issues that trading standards see, or some of the big issues that trading standards see across the board. So shall we do it as a 5-to-1, or shall we do it as a 1-to-5? Louise, you decide. What do you reckon?
5-to-1. 5-to-1.
Whoa! Gemma, have you got them ranked? Because I think you should rank them.
Okay, yeah, roughly ranked. I can rank
Coming in at number 5, Gemma.
Okay, so what we'll do, coming in at number 5, if we do it in reverse order for Lou, we've got furniture. So the buying of furniture. And I suppose if you think about it, it is one of the expensive areas, particularly depending on, what you're buying. Things like sofas. I don't know if either of you have bought one recently, but they can be quite expensive, can't they?
Yeah.
They really can. They really, really can. And I currently have been sitting on the most uncomfortable sofa for the last 3 years. And
it really is uncomfortable.
It's awful,
It's really
but it looks beautiful. And that's the most important thing to Hannah, my wife.
The aesthetic appeal. Yes. When we're looking at furniture, a lot of the common issues are around things like change of mind, particularly depending on how you're buying it. If you're buying it online, and we know lots of people now are shopping for items like furniture online rather than going in store. So there is some interesting differences between your rights, whether you're buying something in store or whether you're buying it online. So when we're thinking about cancellation rights, if you are generally buying anything in store, not just furniture now, there isn't an automatic right of cancellation unless there is a returns policy in that that business offers for you. So that's the first thing that is a real common myth, I think, for consumers. So many stores now offer a returns policy, and I'm sort of edging into number 4, so I won't give that away too much. I don't want to spoil the excitement for you. But it is important to understand that there is a difference. So if you are shopping in store, and I know lots of people, particularly Adam, if you're thinking about the comfort of your sofa, you might want to go in and actually test some out and kind of get a feel.
I should have done that. You're right.
So that can be helpful as well. But just remember that you need to check if you are buying in store whether there is a returns policy, particularly on larger items like furniture. That might be a bit more problematic to take it back than it is if it's a smaller item. If you're buying online, quite often we need to be aware of you usually will have standard cancellation rights, and we'll talk about those a little bit more on the next one. But one of the things that catches people out is whether they are buying a sofa that is just, I'm picking that sofa, or whether they are designing one to be kind of tailored to their specifications, so kind of a bespoke sofa. Now, when you're looking at your cancellation rights when you're buying goods online, if you have completely designed it and somebody has taken all your measurements and they've made it exactly to your specifications, then you are likely to lose the right to be able to cancel it if it is genuinely made to your specifications. Because as we know, we're all really different. If you, me and Lou went and designed our own sofas, I'm sure they would come out completely different to each other, because we're so different in personalities as well. So because the business wouldn't be able to sell it on if you returned it, you would usually lose your right to cancel. However, some businesses, what they will do is they'll give you some drop-down options from a standard selection. So, you can pick from this type of design, this number of seats, etc. That wouldn't prevent you from being able to cancel. So that's a really common one that we see where businesses will sometimes say, no, I'm sorry, you can't return it. But if it has been chosen from a select set of options, that doesn't prevent you from exercising your right to cancel within the 14 days. So that's a big one to be aware of.
So it's really important to check returns policy, I guess, isn't it? And I guess those businesses that have those good quality returns policies that go over and above what they're supposed to do, their obligations, then they're the ones that are going to rise to the top and be the good business, aren't they? They're going to be the go-to, the business of choice for buying your furniture.
You'd hope so. I mean, the other one that you've got to worry about is people, because when they don't fit through your front door.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, when you go, because you don't think about that, do you?
Yeah.
When you're buying, you measure the space. You don't measure your front door or how you're going to get it into
People
your
are
house.
taking windows out.
But they are, because you don't know that that's going to happen. I did that when I ordered my sofas in a couple of houses ago. When I ordered mine, I had to take the front window out. I had to get a window fit around, take the front window out to get the sofa in and out.
Wow. So a couple of things there then. So talking about returns policy, really important that you have a look and make sure you understand if there is any issue. What does it say about the changing of your mind? So if there's something wrong with it, then you have automatic rights. And we'll come on to talk about goods a little bit more as we go higher up our list of top 5 and what those rights would be. But it's really important to, particularly if you haven't seen it, have a look at what the returns policy is and who's responsible for the return costs. You don't want expensive return costs and weighing those up versus taking out your window. So again, those can be costs that we need to be aware of. And then Lou, picking up that really important and common issue about fitting things into your home. Spatial awareness for me is not my strong point. So
mine.
No. So again, when we're thinking about that, reading the description of the goods and the dimensions really carefully is really important. Using something accurate to measure with as well, that all of these things can make a big difference, because as we know, sometimes you're literally talking about an inch difference as to whether it's going to fit in the space or not. But you also need to measure not just I think where people go wrong is they measure just the space in the room and they forget that they've got to think about how it's coming into the house. So again, thinking about the doorways, have you got anywhere that it can come in? Asking the questions before you buy. So does it come in pieces rather than as a whole unit? And what are the dimensions of those boxes? And again, going back to what Adam said, good retailers are going to give you as much information as possible in the description of the product. But if they don't be afraid to ask questions. Contact them, send them an email to the company and ask them for that specific information. If they give you the incorrect information, you would have the right then to return those goods because they've misdescribed them. Whereas if you rely on your own presumptions, that's when it gets tricky and then we get into territories of taking out your window. So yeah, some top things to be aware of when you're buying furniture.
Perfect, thank you. So I think that's furniture done. And so we're going to move up to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is
the online purchase of clothing, which is particularly important at this time of year as we're talking about Christmas. And of course, I don't know if you guys have had or are having any celebrations or parties or nights out, but it's a really popular time for purchasing clothing. So I think looking at some of the statistics, I think it's 36.1% of all total retail sales were online, according to the Office of National Statistics. And clothing is the most popular one of those, with over half of UK shoppers now buying their clothes online. And again, I think it's helpful because I don't know about yourselves, but I know for me sometimes time is a big issue. And often when you go into a store, maybe they don't have the right size available. So a lot of people will now order clothes online, get them delivered, try them on when they've got a bit of time. And that really is a lot of the reasons for the increase in shopping online is the convenience side of things.
It's made life easier, isn't it?
Absolutely. So there's some common things. Sizing. So this is one of the problems, and this is why people will often order multiple sizes if they do free returns, is because they're so different across different businesses. There isn't a standard size, as you will know, those listeners will know, because you're probably different sizes depending on where you buy an item of clothing from, which does make it a bit trickier when you're shopping online as well. So you do need to check the measurement charts for each of those retailers, and some of them are really good, and they have like comparison drop down. So if you were a size, say 12 in one particular retailer, they'll give you a comparison of what you're likely to be. So that can be really helpful rather than you again thinking, well, have I eaten too much food in the party season already? Do I need to go size up? Well, tricky
Almost
things.
Certainly. Cheese.
Yes. Yeah. I'm with Lou on the cheese and crackers, definitely. So as we mentioned when we were talking about furniture, when you're buying goods online, the standard rights that you have are the cancellation rights of 14 days in the law, starting the day after you've received them. Now, with delivery, this is another big area and big problems that we see at this time of year. So, what the law says is when you are buying goods like clothing items, that they need to be delivered to you or to your nominated place. And because there's lots of different delivery companies used by different businesses, I know that we're all really short on time, but it's really important to check what is your nominated place? Have you given them a nominated place that is secure and safe? And that's important because the risk passes the business will, once they've delivered it either to you or your nominated place, then the responsibility lies with you. But until that time, the responsibility lies with the business if anything goes wrong. So, Lou or Adam, have either of you had any disasters with deliveries of packages?
I have. I live on a main road, so I had a parcel the other week that actually they can put parcels in my porch, but they didn't. They posted it through the letterbox, and somebody stole it.
Oh dear.
So then I had they did send me a new one, but also what we're finding, a lot of businesses are making it far more difficult for consumers to access the customer service. There's not a telephone number. It'll be an automated chatbot which kicks you off, and then people just give up because actually it did take me about 2 hours.
Wow.
And when you're like, I'm getting really frustrated by this, and then trying to find email addresses because they don't put their email addresses for customer service on their websites. You can find them via using well-known things like ChatGPT. But it's that, isn't it? It's that digital exclusion piece. And actually, if you don't know your rights or you don't know what you're legally entitled to, you're going to give up. And I think there's a lot of businesses that are hoping consumers will give up.
Yeah, and that's the sort of practice we want to know about in trading standards. If there are businesses that are being difficult and preventing you, essentially putting barriers, unreasonable barriers in your way for exercising your rights, it's really important that that people are reporting it. Because unfortunately, with trading standards, we have shrunk quite significantly if you look at the last 10 years. And what we need people to be the eyes and ears and to tell us what's happening, what those problems are, by reporting them to Citizens Advice or Consumer Line, so that we can then see that where those problems lie and then work with those businesses and take appropriate action, whether that's educational or something else, Lou. So
but from a legal perspective, right, so just on this, right, so they have to, on their website, they have to provide an email address, don't they? Is that e-commerce regs?
Yes.
They have to provide an email address. And it doesn't say anywhere that it has to be prominent. It doesn't say anywhere that all of those things. So again, there is a gap from a legislative perspective. There's nothing, I mean, ideally we'd have, you will provide effective customer service, and then there would be some guidelines around what that actually looks like. But we don't have any of that. So from a consumer access perspective, we are, as consumers, we're not as well protected as we probably could be.
So there are some legal requirements, and again, without going too technical in the legislation. I know we definitely don't do that, but there is some information that businesses have to provide to consumers. So when they're when you're entering into a contract, and I fully appreciate most people do not read the terms and conditions. I mean, I love a good contract, as you know. But
they also don't consider buying clothes as entering into a contract.
No. Exactly. But there are requirements for certain information like complaints procedures and things to have to be provided. So again, if there are any concerns, the best thing to do on that is, as I said, to let us know, because again, I think sometimes there's education for us to do around that. And I know, again, from the business perspective, it might be that we need to do a little bit more campaigning as the Charter Trading Standards Institute to raise businesses' awareness of that. And also from a reputation point of view as well. If people are getting frustrated, they're going to complain. That's going then to cause issues with repeat customers, or indeed getting new customers with bad reviews. So it's not in a business's interest to make it difficult. And if they are, and they're intentionally restricting the consumer's rights, those are the sorts of businesses, if they're intentionally doing it, that we want to hear about in trading standards. So things like rights are really important. The other thing that I would say is around what you can do when you actually have that delivery. So it's really important that you take care and protect those clothes, particularly if you've ordered a couple of sizes and you're planning on sending some of those back. You can only do what's reasonable. In the same way, if you think about, if I went and I was going to buy a dress in a shop, there's only so many things I can do. I can't walk out of that shop with that dress. I can try it on, I can examine it. So that's really what you should be doing when you get the clothing delivered to your home. If you do anything else, else. So if you wear that item of clothing on a night out, if Adam decides, I'm going to wear this shirt for my Christmas party, tuck the label in, and then I'm going to return it the next day, for example, then that's gone above and beyond what you are allowed to do in the law. And the business can either refuse to accept it if Adam's kebab and whatever else has been spilt all
Adam's
over it.
sweaty as
How
well.
do you know?
Really
You
sweaty.
know me so well already. We've only met for half an hour.
Kebab sweaty, Adam is all I'm
Right, yeah. So no business wants to try and resell on a kebab sweaty Adam worn shirt. So
All right, guys. Right, okay. We're gonna move on from that. I think
we've got to move this on because we've got 3 left to go.
I know a really important piece there is reporting to trading standards via citizens' advice, who then feed into the trading standards teams. Coming in at number 3.
This is an absolutely huge one. So roofing, the home improvement sector, and things like energy sector. So hugely topical at the moment. We've been hit by 2 storms in quick succession. So obviously lots of damage to people's properties and homes. So again, I know you've done lots about this sector on Consumer Friend. So some of the key issues: misleading claims, misrepresenting conditions of things like the roof. Now, from a practical perspective, how many of us can get on the roof or have been on the roof to be able to examine it and have a look at it? So from that point of view, it's very difficult for us to challenge any information that somebody gives us about the condition of our roof. And so that lends itself for us then to be misled about the condition or the work that needs to be done. Also, we see things such as claiming treatments about housing, that they, sprays, treatments to your driveway, things like that are misleading, and that actually the product doesn't do what they say it does. And also claims around money savings that you might make by installing energy efficiency measures into your home as well, that aren't supported by any evidence or are just made up or false. So those sorts of issues are huge, absolutely huge areas for investigation and complaints that we receive in trading standards.
We've done quite a bit on the green energy sector and how to get approved traders and the fact that you should go to Trustmark or go to the Buy with Confidence scheme, and maybe perhaps not all builder websites are equal and some aren't necessarily there to help consumers and more
Builder websites, you mean good trader schemes?
Good trader schemes. Sorry,
or builder websites, like Builder Bear.
Good trader schemes or builder comparison sites. Yeah,
comparison sites.
And it's very, very prevalent around kind of winter months, isn't it? Because you see your gas and electric prices going up, or the cost of your gas going up as well. So you're thinking, how can I make savings? And that's when not so good traders can target people.
In relation to what? What do you mean?
In relation to that green energy, so we see it in Scam's team. The green energy stuff tends to rise in the winter months. So they promise of government grants for solar panels, heat pumps, spray foam insulation, that kind of thing, and it's scams and fraudulent. But we see a lot of it.
Absolutely. The incentive there, as you said, Adam, thinking times are so tough at the moment for people. And so if somebody comes along, knocks on your door and says that we can shave, 40% off your bills, that's difficult for anybody to say no to, So again, these practices are why the trading standards profession is so important, as far as, again, let us know about these, but also, we do intervene, we look at those and investigate as well. And they can cost, sometimes having a measure installed in your home that isn't appropriate or suitable can cause a whole host of other issues then related to the property as well. So, as you said, things like using a reputable supplier, and also if it is something that you genuinely need, often the case is that you should be taking the time to do the research. So the time is really the important thing. The standard advice of getting 3 quotes, not just going with somebody that's knocked on your door or called you. That's great, thank you. This has raised some information or awareness. Now I'm going to go and do my own research. And I know that that's time consuming, but it is so much better than going with somebody that has cold called you, either in person or on the call. So, and there's lots of other things you need to think about. So materials will vary from trader to trader, whether they provide any warranties, what work they're actually proposing to do and the quality of that, and any kind of references around it. And you talked about using a reliable trader, and that's a really important area. And the Competition and Markets Authority have just issued some guidance on trusted trader schemes about the minimum level that they should be meeting as well, because there's a recognition there in the sector that they're not all the same. And that can be really confusing for people. Where do I go to look for a trader? And I know that there are calls in the sector for looking at licensing requirements for building work and things like that as well. So lots of things to think about. The other really big one, Adam, as well, just to mention, is about payment. The payment side of things is really important. When you are getting a big home improvement work done, the real important thing is don't pay all of the money for that work up front. What they should be taking is a reasonable deposit. So that, again, there is some guidance for businesses about deposits and prepayments, but as a consumer, think about what it is that they're doing. Do they need to go out and buy lots of things in advance? If so, they might need a little bit more money up front, like if they're installing a kitchen, for example. But if it's predominantly a service, then why are they asking for such a large amount of money up front? They don't need you to pay that. It's just a small deposit to indicate your commitment to that contract, and you must always keep some money back, so if something does go wrong, you can withhold that payment until the job is finished. So that's a really important thing to bear in mind when you're getting home improvement work done as well.
So yeah, we have spoken on numerous occasions around this kind of stuff, around finding a good trader. So we are going to move it on to number 2.
So number 2 is getting your car serviced. So thinking about the servicing side of things, have you ever had any issues with lack of information, misleading information?
It's so expensive. That's my issue with it. I send it to the garage, and then and they phone me 3 hours later, and they go, "That's £400, please." I'm like, "What for?"
But you don't know either, because we're not mechanics. So why would we know? Like, they've gone, "I've changed your windscreen wiper water and I've done your oil." You're like, "What? I can't check that you've done that either. I don't know that you've done it."
Yeah, so it's another tricky area. So again, when we're thinking about what are our rights and what we need to be aware of, is generally when someone's doing a service, any service really, it needs to be done using reasonable care and skill. If there is an inclination that something hasn't been done up to that standard, if the car's not driving right, or there's an indication that things haven't been done, then you can take that back and ask for the service to be done again properly, or you can ask for a price reduction up to the full price that you've paid for the service so that you can get it done elsewhere. Interestingly, there are also traders that record the services when they're done, both to protect themselves and the consumers. So if you are having issues where you're worried about the information that they're giving you and what they're doing, then you could look for services like that do record any sort of action that they've taken on the vehicle as well. And this is another area where we do get complaints about the accuracy of information. So being told that you need replacement parts or a battery, things like that, when you don't necessarily need that. So again, it's thinking about what information do you know in advance, and also making it clear that you want them to call you. That if they can have a look at it, and then if any work needs doing, they need to call you for permission. What that enables you to do, if they tell you what it is, what the part is, ask them, what is the part number? What is it that you're advising me that I need replaced? And then what you can do is just do a quick call round to somebody else to get a telephone quote as to how much those parts and that work would cost somewhere else, to then work out whether that's a reasonable amount and a reasonable quote you've been given. So again, shopping around is really important, even with things like getting your car serviced.
I think it really is. I think it's important to have that kind of good mechanic, that your trusted guy that you go to, or girl that you go to, that you know that you're not going to get ripped off, essentially, and someone that you trust.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Car servicing done. Now, the big finale, number 1.
The big finale. We need
and coming in at number 1 is
second-hand cars.
Ooh, it's always the biggest one with trading standards teams, isn't it? Always the biggest one. Second-hand cars. Go. It
is. And there's so much to unpick on this, which we can't possibly cover everything on a podcast. But I like to use what I call the raw method, as in lion's roar, when I'm thinking about if you're going to buy a second-hand car, what are the things that you need to consider? So the first thing is research and red lines. So what are your needs from the vehicle, not your wants? And that includes things like your budget. What are the features that you need? Is the safety rating important? What about fuel consumption? Boot space, that's a big one for me because I've got 2 small children. So what are your needs? Because
why are you putting your children in the boot?
wow, it's for another podcast.
I
That
put my
one.
children in the boot.
It's just easier.
It's quieter. Put them in the boot. Make sure the parcel shelf is down.
Sorry.
Yeah, so you've got to be really clear about what your needs are, because wants are so easy to overtake those needs. So start off with your red lines, and then we're looking at research. So you can look for, who am I going to buy it from? You can look for the Motor Ombudsman Code of Practice, Trade Association, but you also need information about the car as well. So what's the registration? Is there an MOT test number? So you can do a free check, for example, on the car details with the DVLA. You can do an MOT check on the .gov.uk website, and you can get a private history check if you want. I think the cost is about up to £20. So there's lots of checks and things you can do, and that one will tell you whether there's any outstanding finance, whether it's been involved in a serious accident, etc. So things like that, and making sure, of course, that there's a logbook as well, that you never buy a car without a logbook. So lots of information about research on Money Helper and the Citizens Advice website as well, for things that you can check when you're looking to buy a car. So that's the bit of raw. Then you've got just being observant. So read any descriptions or information that you're given about the car. Not only just what you're told, but also what's missing. What are you not being told? And making sure that you're doing any visual observations. So when you're examining the car, after the salesperson has kind of given you their spiel and showed you round, ask for a bit of time to have a look at it yourself, and then you'll go and get them when you're done, so that you've got the time to look at things in your own time rather than feeling pressured or rushed. And look for any warning lights or anything that you might notice when you're doing your test drive. So again, think things along those lines and being observant. The A then is ask questions, and we are terrible at doing this, but we really need to ask more questions. So again, if you're not sure what questions to ask, there's some really good resources. Citizens Advice, the AA website has got a whole checklist of questions you can ask about cars. You don't need to be an expert, you just need to go prepared. Take a checklist with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Is there anything in your research that doesn't seem right that you want to check or ask them about? Is there anything missing? And then note down what information you're given, who you spoke to and the time, in case there are anything later on. I mean, for me, if I've had a verbal conversation, I tend to follow it up in an email as well. So definitely ask those questions. And then the last bit of raw is know your rights. So key things, who are you buying it from? If you're buying it from a private individual, you have rights in relation to the description. It's got to be accurate and it's got to be legally theirs to sell on. But that's it. So if you're buying it from a business, then you have rights that the car has to be of a satisfactory quality. You have the rights for description. So it opens up more rights if you're buying it from a business. And then when we're thinking about timeframes, there's 3 key timeframes. First 30 days, if there is a fault with the car, you can reject it and have all of your money back. The second time frame is 6 months. So in the first 6 months, there's what we call a reverse burden of proof, which means it's presumed that the car was faulty when you bought it. So that can help sometimes if you're in a dispute with the business. And then the third one is 6 years. So you have up to 6 years for any goods to make any claims. But the longer you've had something, the less likely it's due to be a fault. It's more likely to be wear and tear.
The only thing that with secondhand cars is slightly different from other things is that if you do reject the vehicle and you've driven it for some time, the business that you've bought it from can reduce some of your refund for reasonable use, can't they?
You can within the first 6 months, but after the first 30 days, so first 30 days it would be a full refund. After that it would be they can reduce. So if you've you've bought the car and then you've been on really long journeys and you've done a big tour around the UK, then they can make a deduction for usage.
And that's where we've had a couple of queries in ads about that particular, what is reasonable, and I'm not going to ask you that question, but this is the thing, isn't it, because it's subjective as well. What is reasonable? What is a reasonable deduction for usage? So again, that's also worth, if that happens, if you do end up rejecting the car after 30 days because something's gone wrong with it, and a business tries to make what you feel is an unreasonable reduction, speak to Citizens Advice, speak to Trade and Standards, see if you can get some information and advice there, because that could be a sharp practice or a bad practice that company's particular, if they're doing it to lots of different people as well.
Absolutely. So, you've got rejection. You can give them one opportunity to repair or replace. And if there is a dispute about kind of the deduction, then ask them, how have you calculated this? That's a reasonable question. So again, we're back to ask questions. Don't feel like you just have to accept information that you're given. And then the last thing as well in relation to rights is finance. If you are going to buy a car on finance, make sure that you understand a little bit about, there's so many different types of finance, PCP, HP, lots of acronyms and things. So it's really important, because often when you've got a finance agreement, it's the finance company that own that car until you've paid off your finance agreement. And a lot of people just don't understand that. They think, I've bought my car from the trader, but actually your contract is often with the finance company. So again, lots of really useful information that you can find out. So just have a little research on the types of finance and make sure you're picking one that's good for you, not just the one that the salesperson has told you sounds like the best fit. So as I said, when you're thinking about purchasing cars, try and use the RAW method. That's the one I always think about. So red lines and research, observations, ask questions, and just make sure that you know you're right, so that you're empowered to make good decisions and you don't get carried away, as we all tend to do, with the excitement of buying a new car.
It's a green one. I'm going to buy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Jemma, thank you so much. That was amazing. So I'm just going to recap the top 5. Number 5 is the purchasing of furniture. Number 4, e-commerce or online purchasing, especially around clothing. Number 3, home improvement, green energy, those kind of things, finding a trusted trader. Number 2, car servicing. And in at number 1, has remained at number 1 actually for probably a very, very long time now, is the purchasing of secondhand cars. Jemma, thank you so much. That was fantastic. We have come to it. We've kind of overrun, and I do apologise about that. That's my fault. I'm going to blame myself. Jemma, thank you so much. Any final words? I guess probably just the reporting bit.
Yeah, let us know. And again, just don't feel it's I think asking questions and feeling empowered, doing a little bit of research, just can give you that confidence when making decisions. So definitely go for it. And if you're in doubt, get some advice before you go, not afterwards when something goes wrong.
Thank you very much. Louise, anything to add?
This is great. I think we have you back on again, Jemma, to cover off some more stuff.
Absolutely.
Season 5,
anytime.
if we decide to do it.
I think, Adam, we did that most horrendous podcast on unfair contract.
Oh my word! I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing it again.
No, but I think Jemma could make it interesting.
I mean, that would be amazing if she could.
That sounds like a challenge.
It's a real challenge.
I do like a challenge though, Lou, as you know. So
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for today.
Yeah, thank you so much. As ever, Consumer Friend is available online at www.consumerfriend.org.uk, and we're here on the podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, rate, review. Only if it's 5 stars though. Thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, and probably see you all in the new year. Louise, I'll probably see you in about an hour. Happy Christmas, listeners. Thank you very much, Jemma. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're saying bye.
Jemma,
All right, bye.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is Consumer Friend.